Part 44. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 453. During the 2 days of daily life on the ship, Liu and Lingzhe jointly took care of Wei 11, and Ika had no room for help for the time being. So in their free time, this rare pair often stay together and chat about topics of all sizes. Although we are getting closer to the world tree, Wei 11 doesn't seem to be improving at all. It is said that the world tree can make Xiao 11 get better quickly. It shouldn't be like watering the seeds and they will grow into big trees immediately. Maybe it is somewhere we can't see, such as what Ika said, the spirit the world. It's probably a much better place than it was before I came here. Liu didn't know whether this metaphor was appropriate or not, and didn't know what the so-called spiritual world was like. He just used nice words to comfort himself and Ling. Ling seemed to understand Liu's good intentions and just let out a small sigh. Liu, do you know where Ika is now? Now, it should be over there in the cab. When he came here to visit Xiao 11 in the morning, he seemed to have said he was going there. I'll go over and take a look. Hitomi should be there too, right? I didn't see Hitomi when Ika came here, and I don't know if he is around him now. Although the child doesn't talk much, he becomes a little more active when he is around Ika. In my opinion, it's like Xiao 11 from before, a little afraid of strangers. Ling, who had just stood up from his seat, sat back down hesitantly. Then let the two of them stay alone for a while. Ling stood up and sat back down again. Her hesitant behavior made Liu look at her with confusion. Miss Ling, you don't have such a personality, right? According to the impression Ling left on Liu, she should be more concerned about Ika at this tense moment. Because among the 4 girls who got along day and night, Luo and Wei 11 have left everyone, and the most trustworthy and dependent person around Ika is left. But Ling, who was supposed to support Ika, seemed to be afraid of something. In many ways, he and Ika were far apart from each other. It's enough for her to have Hitomi with her, and it won't be much different if I go. Moreover, even if Hitomi isn't there, if I'm alone with him, I probably can't help but want him to comfort me. That's it. It's putting the cart before the horse. When Liu heard this, he already understood what Ling wanted to express. She sighed inwardly at the annoyance of being so childish yet showing off her delicacy so vividly. You should know Ika better than me, right? He shouldn't be the kind of person who will change his opinion of you just because of 1 or 2 frustrating words. Even if you come to him to vent your bitterness, the 2 of you will probably be more understanding after doing so. Be more comfortable. At least you don't keep all the uncomfortable things in your heart. He will also know what kind of troubles you have and what you should do to solve them. But at this time, there is no need to burden him with my affairs. At least I still know this very well, or it may be difficult to let go. It's probably self-esteem that Ling has a hard time letting go of, but in fact it's more of stubbornness. Although there was no regret in her tone for not being able to act coquettishly to Ika, this casual statement had exposed her thoughts. This true side of himself had been revealed in front of Ika that night, and after letting go, he no longer had the rigid persistence before. Now I no longer feel particularly embarrassed even if I occasionally say something that I don't think my strong self would say. My responsibility should be to support him, not to let him comfort me. At least this is something I don't want to change. I'm telling you, wouldn't it make living like this very tiring? What's the meaning? Responsibility and so on. If you want to live freely, you should just do whatever you want, right? You always abide by rules and regulations, and you are just causing trouble for yourself, right? Speaking of which, Liu, you also have a strong sense of responsibility, right? Ling narrowed her eyes slightly and looked at Liu, who was as eloquent as a young adult. I should be the one to tell you that you are clinging to the rules and refusing to let go, right? What's going on with you? Now I'm using the precious time that should have been spent watching Xiao 11's sleeping face to listen to you and comfort you on Ika's behalf. Liu Yin's face turned red with anger at Ling's complaints, and she clapped her legs with her palms very excitedly. Ahaha, thank you, Liu Yin. You're welcome. Ling finally smiled at Liu Yin. In fact, she was very grateful to Liu Yin for taking the time to listen to her talk nonsense. Having been looked down upon by Ling just now, Liu Yin squirmed in his seat uncomfortably as he accepted her sincere thanks again. Speaking of which, Ling changed the previously depressed topic. The two people from the Nemesis Society haven't come out of the room yet, have they? Didn't Ika say you don't have to worry about them? If they make any moves, Hitomi will notify us in time. During these 2 days, 3 meals will be delivered to Misty's room on time. Because Veer is still awake, he doesn't have to prepare his portion. Ika did not force the two of them to be imprisoned, so Ling and Liu Yin, who were on high alert, were still very uneasy about being in the same room with the enemy, and it was natural for them to be wary. Misty should have known that they were being watched all the time and that they would be dealt with if they acted dangerously, so she never even stepped out of the door. The rooms and living facilities on Yutra Hill are very complete, and this kind of treatment is too luxurious for imprisonment. It would be great if they could stay content like this. At least they won't make any big moves on Hitomi's aviation magic ship. Then we'll see if Misty will fulfill her promise and take us to the association's stronghold inside the World Tree. Ling paused. It is said that part of the country I lived in before is also inside the World Tree, Liu Yin. It's all in the past. In fact, it had only been 2 or 3 years since Liu Yin and Wuxi came to this era. When they were sleeping in Wei 11's barrier, the time inside the barrier stopped flowing. Therefore, the day when the Principality of Sentia was destroyed was still something that happened 2 or 3 years ago for them, and there was no Liu Yin representation. So long ago. Ling didn't know what Liu Yin thought about this fact. Her understanding of the Sentia Principality was only the memory of Wei 11 she saw in the ruins. Don't you want to go back? I'm sorry if I was wrong. I thought your memories in Sentia Principality should be good. After all, I only saw you from Wei 11's perspective. There should be no shadows in my childhood. You are overthinking it. Ling just mistakenly thought that Liu Yin might only show happiness when she was with Wei 11, and her past might not even be clear to Wei 11, who met her secretly. Until Liu Yin faintly shook his head, completely denying Ling Zigutzi's random speculation. It's just that, at least until now, I have never thought about returning to the Principality of Sentia. If Misty hadn't said it herself, neither Wei 11 nor I would have known that the Principality of Sentia was still somewhere in this world. Moreover, even if we go back there, the Principality of Sentia will definitely have changed after decades. All we can say is, this is the place we lived before. Other than that, there's nothing left to miss, right? Liu Yin's indifferent words touched Ling's heart. Ika, Luoluo, Wei 11, and themselves all wanted to deal with all the incidents quickly, and then return to Shiyu Academy and the administrator's cabin where everyone spent every minute together peacefully. Only there is the original and final destination of the 4 of them. Only the caretaker's cabin where 4 people can gather together can call it home. Otherwise, it's just a 2-story building that you see everywhere. Ling, what's wrong with you? Liu Yin's voice pulled Ling back from her nostalgic fugue. It's nothing. I just heard what you said and thought of something similar. Ling stood up from her seat again. I'd better go to Ika and have a look. Wei 11 shouldn't have anything to help with. Well, I won't go there. Immediately afterwards, Liu Yin added, I won't disturb you too. It's not an interruption at all. It's not like I did anything weird in the past. Aren't you going to change the target of your complaints to him and have a good show of coquettishness? Of course not. Ling defended loudly with her face flushed. As for whether the facts are as Liu Yin said, only Ling himself knows. finally escaped from Liuyan. Halfway through, the hurried pace gradually slowed down. It wasn't that she had anything on her mind, it was just that she unconsciously started to hesitate about entering the room where he was. I don't know when the courage I mustered up ran away. I can only hope that time will slow down a little more and slowly smooth out this hesitant mentality. While Ling was taking steps hesitantly, golden particles appeared around Ling like a sword of light. Light. Just like Hitomi always stays by Aika's side, Hikari will also appear by Ling's side from time to time. In the beginning, she always deliberately aroused Ling's emotions, but recently she has calmed down a lot. From the first meeting to now living in the same world, Ling and Guang have been getting along for nearly a month. It can be said that the running in between the two has already been almost completed. I'll go with you too. The magic costume of the Kin's family is also there. If we two go together to find him, we won't be nervous, right? It's not because I'm nervous or anything, it's just that I can't think of what to say after seeing him. There's nothing wrong with him, I just want to take a look. It will be weird no matter what I think about it, right? Since his own thoughts could not be hidden from the magic suit that had peeked into his heart, Ling simply spoke out. Of course, Guang already knew that Ling was troubled by this kind of thing, he just wanted to see if she would let go of her dignity and speak out. It's a very common thing. Only people who think too much will worry about this kind of problem. Why do I feel that the person you are talking about is referring to me? Don't you do a good job when you don't pay attention to such things? I didn't expect that my master's mind is so delicate. That's how I am, okay. Very well, then keep it like this. What are you saying? Just keep it as casual as you are now. If you don't want to admit it, just block it out with all your strength. You don't have to look unhappy all the time. Just relax and relax. Ling had roughly understood what Guang wanted to convey to her. In summary, she was just saying that she was too nervous about meeting Aika. I know exactly what to do. Ling Zuo muttered reluctantly, but did not refuse Guang walking beside him. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 454. Hitomi, who was sitting quietly on Aika's legs, whispered, "I'm going back," without any warning, and immediately disappeared from sight after leaving Aika's legs. Immediately afterwards, the cabin door of the cab was pushed open from the outside. Aika turned around, and it turned out that Ling had walked in. Aika did not continue to delve into the reason why Hitomi suddenly returned to the spiritual world, and left the driver's seat and walked towards Ling's side. "Aren't you and Liuyan taking care of Way 11? Liuyan is alone over there. She and I will come over to see if there is anything you need help with." She. Aika's puzzled question seemed that she really didn't know who the person Ling was talking about. Ling, who felt something was wrong, immediately turned around and looked behind him. Guang's figure had quietly disappeared without knowing when. That guy. Seeing Ling's left and right figures looking for someone and her unhappy expression, Aika guessed that it probably had something to do with her magical equipment. Hitomi was here just now, but she has already gone back over there. I just said she wanted to come here to have a look, but as I walked, the person disappeared. Aika and Ling's magic costumes left here, leaving the two of them alone in the cab. The result was the same as Liuyan expected, and it ended up being like this. Ling originally thought of diverting Aika's attention with the light that followed, but the light that saw through her plan had already quietly left, so this method naturally didn't work. Aika didn't seem to notice the emotional changes in Ling's heart, and started talking without permission. "At this speed, we should be able to see the world tree we are looking for tomorrow afternoon. Is this what Hitomi said?" Aika walked up the stairs to the driver's platform, and Ling also followed Aika up the steps. They stood on a high place and looked at the blue sky outside Yutra Hill together. There is nothing. Everyone has been looking at the same scenery for 2 days, a blue sky with nothing but clouds. Looking at the scenery, no matter how impatient you are, you will calm down. Is this why you sat here and stared at the sky for so long? When you look at it, you'll feel like your consciousness is being separated from your body, so you probably won't be able to feel it. Just come and try it and you will know. I don't want to experience such a weird feeling myself, it sounds very uncomfortable. We rejected Ika's kind invitation without hesitation, but when she looked at the vast world in front of her again, she felt it a little more carefully. Because there is nothing, nothing can be seen, nothing can be touched, it seems like I am the only one left in the world. In such a world, there is nothing that must be pursued vigorously, and complex emotions will naturally not be born. This is probably the ethereal feeling Ika described. It's exactly what you said. Right. The anxiety and recklessness of a few days ago have disappeared from Ika's body. He spoke now as if he had calmed down while looking at the scenery in front of him. In fact, it was Ling's crying and slapping that probably woke him up at that time. The one before. What did you say? You haven't forgotten that I beat you when we were in the imperial capital, right? I can't forget it even if I want to. Don't forget, Ling's voice increased slightly, then quickly returned to normal, don't forget a word of what I said. Recalling how she cried so hard at that time, Ling felt more and more ashamed as she talked. But she still insisted on bringing up the old things in front of Ika. Even though he was so ashamed that he couldn't forget what happened at that time. Now that Ika has seen her most shameful appearance, it doesn't matter if she is seen more. So it's impossible to forget, right? Ika could clearly see Ling trying to endure, but he didn't care about her at all. You said you didn't want to see me lose, so I have to work hard first. Just don't lose to yourself. I don't want to see you lose. Please don't make me despair. To this day, what Ling cares about most is the last words he left for Ika. The previous words are all in the name of everyone, but this sentence is the appeal to Ika in the identity of the girl Ling. I don't know whether Ika did it intentionally or unintentionally, but she directly said the sentence she least wanted to recall. Even when he heard the words he had said again from his mouth, his brain felt like it was shutting down. It seems that he has been scolded by the girls around him more times than he was scolded by his father before leaving home. Ika couldn't help but smile bitterly. I have seriously reflected on it during this period. At that time, because of Luoluo and Wei 11's incident, I didn't control my emotions well, and as a result, you cried. No. Although I may not be able to do anything for you now, I hope you can allow me to use my time to make up for it slowly in the future. The next time. The time we spend together will be very long in the future, won't we? Ika was full of confidence in the unknown future. Only extremely confident people can say such completely unfounded words with such certainty. Wei 11 wakes up after that, let's bring Luoluo back and then go home together. Where did you get such excessive self-confidence? Ika's bold words made Lingdu laugh to tears. However, Ling also smiled and hoped from the bottom of his heart that the future described by Ika could become a reality. After finding the World Tree, Misty will take us to the stronghold of the Nemesis Society, and Lolo may also be there. If you really see Lolo then, what will you do? This question is full of temptation. If the stupid sister can't listen to what I say, I can only use force to get her back. As for whether she will be angry later, in short, as long as she apologizes, it will be fine, right? Not all problems can be solved with an apology. The answer was as expected, but there was a little more rational consideration in the answer, which made Ling very satisfied. Misty said that maybe the only people left there should be that leaves their eldest sister. If we only use her as our opponent, you and I plus Lu Yin will always be able to find a way. You just asked me where I got so much confidence. It's because you are by my side that I feel like I will find a way no matter what. Ika laughed without any pretense, but Ling felt like she was digging a hole by herself. Don't be so proud of saying that kind of thing. There was a thick and rich atmosphere of charm brewing between Ika and Ling from beginning to end, but the next second it was completely blown away by the sound that suddenly broke into the space between the two of them. Time is up. Oh, I originally wanted to buy you a little more time, but Hitomi can't stop me no matter what. Ika and Ling hurriedly looked away from each other and turned their heads to look behind them. When the two of them appeared there, Ika and Ling, who were immersed in their world, had no idea. Hitomi walked quickly to Ika's side in 3 steps at a time, and hugged his arm as if declaring ownership. Hey, did I say that you two are colluding? Ling's expression and tone declared that she was 100% on the verge of anger. Hitomi and Hikaru left at the same time, and jumped in at the same time, looking at it as if they had planned it in advance. No, Hitomi and I have different spiritual worlds. We are completely outsiders. You've stayed here too long. The implication of Hitomi's words is that the eviction order cannot be refused. It seems that she returned to that world because Ling and Guan came here before, but after waiting for a long time before Ling left here, she couldn't help but come out. Hitomi, it's rare for us to have this kind of time to relax and get together. Isn't this not a bad thing? Speaking of which, everyone has been busy with their own things in the past 2 days. Except for eating, they don't seem to sit down and chat leisurely. Chat. Ika, Ling, Hitomi, Hikaru, Liuyan, the Sleeping Way 11, and Will and Misty, who are not included as talking partners. This is indeed a rare combination. At this critical moment, perhaps everyone is really nervous and has no time to chat about pleasant things after dinner. But occasionally when I think about this, I can't help but feel a little concerned and feel a little lonely. That kind of leisurely moment should wait until the incident is over. It will be very tiring to force a happy face. Hikari approached Hitomi without making any footsteps, grabbed her armpits and picked her up. Okay, Hitomi, please stop disturbing the two masters. If you don't let go, will you die? If something goes wrong here, it will be very troublesome for both you and my master. I don't know if she really took this reason into consideration, but this time Hitomi was carried away by Hikaru without any resistance. Anyway, I just came here for a casual look. If nothing happens, you can rest assured. Ling seemed to be disturbed and had no intention of staying here for a long time. Hitomi, even if you are Ika's sister, I will leave you alone. His distance is still too close. Ling still maintained her elegant smile, but her eyes and silent pupils collided with invisible sparks. Hikaru, who was holding Hitomi, was innocently involved in the collision between the eyes of the two girls. It seems that even after all time is over, there will definitely not be a peaceful future. I heard the noise from you guys. What happened? Even Luyan passing by the door was attracted by the sound. In a sense, it has indeed fulfilled Ika's wish not long ago that everyone can get together in their leisure time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 455. Misty never left this room during the 2 days she spent on the aviation magic ship Yatrashal. The room has all the living facilities, and 3 meals will be delivered to the door of the room on time. Misty did not refuse the charity from the enemy. Because she wants to live. I had never thought about such a thing before. No matter how dangerous it was, I did it without any hesitation, and I never felt afraid of life or death. It wasn't until Will left that Misty recalled the loneliness she had almost forgotten. Before Ver comes back, she wants to live, and live with Ver's share. Misty hugged her knees and sat beside the bed where Ver was sleeping, leaning her head against the window sill. Her eyes reflected the same scenery that Ika and Ling saw. The empty beauty was so imaginative that it reminded her of the time when she first entered the Nemesis Society. Because she was a 6-winged elf, Misty's family had already been separated from the elves before she came to this world. The family experienced many hardships during the migration, and finally began to fall apart from within and became a family in name only. The time when Misty had the memory happened to be the day her mother passed away. Her mother's appearance was the first memory that stayed in Misty's mind. As time goes by, my mother's appearance has gradually become veiled. She inherited the magic costume Starbao 5 Emperors won along her mother's bloodline, and in order to survive, she joined the exiled local mixed-race mercenary group that was famous in the sense of evil. The ability of the magic suit Starbao 5 Emperors won helped her to show off her skills in the mercenary group, which gave her a living space. At the same time, the information about her was spread to the Nemesis Society, which was actively hunting the magic suit. One day, the notorious mercenary group was completely destroyed by just 2 people. The opponent was a tall man in white and a woman in Cheongsam. The mercenary group, known for its ferocious fighting power, was completely defeated in less than 10 minutes. Misty was the only one who survived in that mercenary group. It was not because she could compete with those 2 people with the power of the magic weapon Starbao 5 Emperor's Throne 1, but because those 2 people let her go. As for the elves, they have nothing to do with us, so there is no need to pursue them to the end. If you come here, it should be much better than living in a place like this garbage dump. I really don't know how a kid like you can survive in a place like this until now. Without the magic costume, he would probably have suffered the same fate as those who were burned, killed, and looted by them. So, are you interested in using your power for us? Having tried her best to resist until the last moment, Misty had no room for rejection and accepted their persuasion without thinking. After that, Misty was admitted into the Nemesis Society. She has not been unfairly treated as a prisoner of war, and there is no concept of prisoner of war in the Nemesis Society. As long as she joins, she is a comrade with the same aspirations. After Misty entered this weird association, she only contributed the power of the magic costume. Other than that, she did not open her heart to anything here. The little girl you picked up from outside is already broken-hearted, right? In the antique mansion, Lalicia confirmed this to Vale. How many of the people here right now are still heartbroken? There was no real meaning in the raised corner of Will's mouth, and Lalicia didn't expect to read his true meaning. She has no interest in understanding what a crazy person really wants to express. That is a pointless approach. Lalicia only had to interpret his words according to her own understanding. It was Veer's suggestion to take Misty in. As long as the person being hunted is not a prince or aristocrat who has committed the most heinous crimes in the Bis Empire, he will not drive them out and kill them all. He seemed to see through the meaning of Misty's existence at a glance. For a young girl like her who had nothing more to do than survive, this approach would allow her to keep her magical equipment as a reserve for her plans, while also utilizing her power. Perhaps she has long given up on living in this world as a life, and just trades herself as an object, using her own value in exchange for the means of survival. Will has seen many children like Misty, otherwise if so, she doesn't have to give up her self-esteem and listen to our requests. Accepting our requests without even equal exchange conditions is just a sign of insensitivity. This is completely unlikable. Lalicia began to regret assigning the little girl to her group. Although we are indeed not a serious organization, we are not criminals engaged in human trafficking. Now that you are here with us, you should at least be able to communicate normally. It's rare to hear you say such humane words, eldest sister. You were the one who first proposed to recruit her, weren't you already fascinated by her? I just think that if she still has a future, at least she doesn't have to be buried there forever. Weir said this, unable to see the darkness in his heart at all. She probably hasn't made a clear distinction between that garbage dump-like place and who is the real darkness among us. Anyway, since you brought her in and the people above didn't say anything, I'll arrange for you to be responsible for taking care of her. Lalicia waved her hand, saying that she didn't want to worry about this matter anymore. If she really wants to live a normal life, at least there must be a purpose other than living. Living has no such purpose, it is just a puppet on strings. In that case, she will be a hidden danger to us. As long as we come up with similar conditions, she could be turned against at any time by people like us. Sister, you may have misunderstood something. I have no experience in taking care of children. Excuse me, do you think I would? Letitia replied to Weir unceremoniously. Since it was an order from a superior, Weir had no choice but to accept it. There happens to be nothing to do, so just think of it as a pastime. Misty will still eat well every day and maintain the minimum necessities of life, but will not do anything else. Of course, I haven't communicated with anyone. Veer walked directly into Misty's room without saying hello. Because he couldn't get a response even if he greeted her, Will simply gave up and asked for trouble. It's been almost a month since you've been here. Are you adapting to life here, Misty? Will tried to strike up a conversation with Misty, who had still not established communication for a month, but of course he didn't get a response. Misty sat in the corner of the bed with her knees folded, shrouded in the shadow of the wall. She didn't even raise her head when Will came in and spoke, just facing Will, who took her in with silence. No one knows what Misty thinks about every day. Maybe she didn't think about anything, just watched the morning sun rise slowly and the sunset gradually set, to count the time. Now he probably won't resist no matter what he does to her, Will thought. Even if she is allowed to die in pain, she will think that is the fate of the traded object. Sister, I have an order. You will follow me from now on. No answer. Weir only knew that she was awake and should have listened to what he said. Continuing to stay here could only kill time, and even killing time became extremely difficult, so Veer chose to leave her room. After that, the Nemesis Society did not take action for the time being, so Will did not receive any tasks that required him to take Misty out. Naturally, the opportunity to communicate with Misty was lost. However, in order to fulfill Lelitia's arrangement requirements, Will still went to Misty's room every 3 to 5 days to trouble her. Did you have a good meal today? I haven't had much work recently. If you're in the mood, I can take you for a walk on the street. The outside of this mansion used to be a human country, but because of the war, only their capital remained. But now I have everything I need, at least there are some interesting things. It is true that Will, as he said before, comes to annoy Misty every day just for fun. He said he was going to take Misty to wander the streets of the capital of Sentia Principality, but in fact he didn't hold much hope in his heart. If Misty didn't have such a wish, even if she took her out forcefully, she would just be asking for trouble. Now all Veer can do is chat with the doll like Misty. Maybe one day she will be interested in what he says on a sudden whim. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 456. Occasionally there will be missions that require traveling far away from the mansion. Misty would still follow Will as he asked, but she still didn't speak, just like a humanoid fully automatic safety device. Misty, even if you say something casually, at least don't make the atmosphere between us look so stiff, otherwise others will become suspicious. During this trip, Vale also made the same request to Misty, but he felt that such requests would eventually come to naught. What the two of them want to do is to reach cooperation with the reactionary organization of the Tiburai Kingdom, the Science and Technology Party that claims science first. Now they are going to negotiate at the agreed meeting place. Leaving the Sentia Principality area inside the World Tree, she made a special trip to the Tiburai Kingdom through the Nemesis Society's Transfer Magic Circle. This should be Misty's first visit to a human country. Misty was wearing a dark evening dress that perfectly fit her petite figure. She was paired with Vale, who was wearing a white windbreaker. They gave passers-by the impression that they were a brother and sister, and there was nothing incompatible with them. This girl wrapped in a simple evening dress is more like a large doll, with a bit of innocence and childishness in her clear eyes. The evening dress made of intricate lace and gorgeous silk was worn on Misty's body. It didn't feel fancy at all, but it just perfectly brought out the cuteness of a young girl. A pair of slender feet exposed from under the long skirt are set in black round-toe shoes, which is no different from the exquisite doll dress. Misty's outfit is Lilicia's taste. However, Lilicia rarely wears such light and fluttering clothes. Maybe this type of clothing just doesn't suit her personality. But I can't imagine it. You look much cuter in this outfit than you usually do when you're huddled in the corner. When she first met Misty when she was annihilating the alien mercenary group, she was only wearing coarse cloth clothes with no girlish curves visible at that time. After coming to the Nemesis Society, she always wore indoor pajamas prepared for her. Misty was not moved by Will's compliment, because even the dressing up was done for her by Lilicia, and she did not have any needs herself. If Lilicia hadn't bothered, Misty would probably have left the house with fluffy hair that she had just taken a shower and hadn't yet dried. Except for part of the journey where you need to take regional trains, Weir drives himself the rest of the time. They found the vehicle prepared by the Nemesis Society on the outskirts and drove towards the predetermined location across the abandoned road. After all, the Nemesis Society is not a dark organization that can walk under the sun. It is very particular about covert operations, so Misty, who will definitely turn heads of passers-by, does not have many opportunities to show her charm. There was no need for them to deliberately choose an uninhabited road, because the agreed place for negotiation this time was an enterprise on the surface of the Tiburai Kingdom. Such a beautiful building doesn't look like a shady enterprise at all. Will opened the door and got out of the car, and Misty, who was sitting in the back seat, also got out of the back seat and closed the door silently. In front of them was a typical commercial building. Although this place is not considered a prime location, judging from the level of economic development of the Tiburai Kingdom, it is already ranked among the top 100 companies. At least the market share of the companies they are about to trade with has reached a 10-digit ratio to the total market value of the Tiburai Kingdom. If we can get rid of them, we should be able to move freely in the Tiburai Kingdom. But on the other hand, they may also plan to swallow us up. Since they can develop their business to this extent, their boss it's probably not a fuel-efficient lamp. Misty probably wasn't listening to Veer's warning bells. She just followed Weir's orders and didn't think much about the content of the mission and the hidden dangers. Misty, we are getting ready to enter the tiger's den. I won't say any more next time, just pay more attention to your surroundings. Even after reminding her repeatedly, Will didn't know whether Misty understood what she meant. It was still up to her to decide what to do. The sensor door opened in response, and the two walked into the company lobby, boarded the vertical elevator, and used the passes they had prepared to release specific permissions to reach the top floor. Will put his hands in the pockets of his windbreaker and walked into the independent room on the top floor of the Enterprise building. The protagonist of today's negotiation was already sitting opposite them. Let's get straight to the point. You already know the purpose of our coming here. We can provide you with information on the business flow of the BIS Empire. With such information, your market share will definitely double again. On the contrary, what we ask is that you help us open up the relationship within the Tiburai Kingdom. In this way, both of us can move forward more steadily. The owner of this company is one of the leaders of the two major parties in the Tiburai Kingdom, the Technology Party. If the Science and Technology Party's resistance to the Tiburai Kingdom is properly utilized, it is possible to control about half of the forces in the Tiburai Kingdom. I have heard about the reputation of your company for a long time. Your company should be very prosperous in the BZ Empire and can be called a prominent figure. They are just terrorists who are wanted by the country and may be dealt with at any time. Ha ha ha, it seems that your company is aware of itself. This negotiation could have been conducted through other channels this time, but we were specifically asked to be present in person. It must be because there are some issues that have to be addressed in person, right? Miss Jian sat quietly next to Will. She was not interested in the content of the transaction between the Nemesis Society and this enterprise. She just looked around from time to time, and something seemed to make her feel very uncomfortable. There seem to be many people in the BZ Empire who are interested in your society, especially those powerful princes and nobles. In their eyes, your society is a thorn in their side that must be eliminated at any cost, right? So, right? If so, from what channels can your company obtain information on business flows? That kind of thing should be in the hands of the group of people who are most afraid of your company, right? So you have questions about this kind of thing, I understand. After all, we are all businessmen. We can't accept the sudden cooperation without understanding it in advance, right? If it were in the BES Empire, the power of the Enemesis Association could easily open up many roads. However, there is no such power base in the Tiberai Kingdom, and the resistance it receives is relatively large. As for your question, I can only say that it is a business secret and I have no comment. If the business secrets are disclosed to partners and competitors, won't this cooperation fail? Ha ha ha, that makes sense. The boss of the company opened his mouth and laughed unabashedly. I have also said before that the dominant power of commercial activities is in the hands of the powerful princes and nobles. Here, if we can help them solve their major worries, we can also easily obtain that kind of thing. Isn't this safer than a transaction without insurance? The air in the room suddenly reversed, and corporate guards armed with firearms poured into the room from the door behind. The alert Misty was about to stand up, but Will reached out and held the back of her hand, hinting her not to act rashly. If you insist on calling us here, there will probably be problems. Sister really predicted it right. Weir just sat in his seat without making any movement, and said to the business owner with a sly smile. The magic suit Jack the Ripper, disintegrated. There is no action simply because there is no need for action. Before the gun-wielding corporate guards pulled the trigger, several dark green short-handled daggers drew shining trajectories in mid-air, instantly cutting the corporate guards wearing protective suits into pieces. Blood and limbs flew across the air. The bodiless corporate guards relied on their firearms to keep a distance from Will and Misty, so the splattered flesh and blood did not leave traces on Will's white windbreaker. At the same time, the tip of one of the daggers turned, and a cold light flashed straight through the middle of the business owner's eyebrows, and penetrated into the wall behind him. However, the dark green short-handled dagger was not stained with a trace of blood, and the head of the business owner was also intact. When the dagger pierced his head, the figure of the business owner appeared as a double image like radio interference. It turned out that it was just a projection that looked the same as a real person. Magic equipment holders, sure enough, ordinary people can't deal with you. This time it's rare to open your eyes. The business owner who was hiding somewhere held his chin in his hands and observed Will and Misty with interest. This result seemed to have been expected by him. But in order to deal with magic equipment holders like you, there are guests from the BZ Empire who have come all the way here. I will ask them to entertain you. The surrounding air was compressed again, and both Will and Misty had noticed this at the same time. Misty, you can show off your skills now. While speaking, Weir turned sideways to avoid the hidden weapon shot from the dark place. Bounty hunter, this is a freelance profession born in order to hunt down the Nemesis Society and earn huge bounties issued by the BIS Empire. In order to be able to compete with the holders of magic equipment, this type of people have mastered many dangerous fighting skills, and often operate in groups composed of multiple people, making them a difficult enemy. Then leave it to the professionals. Remember the last scene you saw? I'm sorry, boss. Weir had obviously encountered a difficult enemy, but Weir's attitude was still at ease. It's a coincidence that we have accepted 2 commissions like you this time. If you can't negotiate, if so, we will deal with you. This is the request of your competitors, and they seem to be happy to watch you collapse. Magical equipment Starbow 5 Emperor's Throne 1, Chain Detonation. The violent explosion that shook the entire corporate building exploded on the top floor of the high-rise building, sending molten structural materials flying. Take care of one first. In the violent explosion caused by Misty without any warning, one person was unprepared and was immediately killed by Will using the poison of the magic weapon Jack the Ripper. The bounty hunters commissioned by the company this time were a team of 5. At the moment of the explosion, Weir came into close contact with one of them and got a first taste of their qualities. Maybe their joining forces will indeed bring a bit of a threat, but it's not as troublesome as the rumors say. Their attack methods mainly include hot and cold weapons and compound magic, which are tactical magic that can be most effective in joint operations. Misty's chain detonation had caused the top floor to collapse, and the floor began to weld from the center. They and the bounty hunters fell into the lower level where the fighting space was wider. The first impression is that it is a difficult opponent to deal with, but the threat that the bounty hunters can bring to Weir is just to get close to him and force him back. But it is basically impossible to completely defeat Weir, as Weir expected. Misty was a little far away from Vale. The moment the unshaven middle-aged man among the 2 remaining bounty hunters turned his target towards her, the petite figure in a dark evening gown suddenly disappeared from the place. That is the exclusive ability of the elves, and it belongs to a different sequence from magic, mostly based on the mental interference system and the charm system. Misty uses the most basic hallucination technique, a camouflage that is completely indecipherable to the human eye. The middle-aged man lost his target, and the next moment, the giant steel snake raised its huge head. The huge body of the monster made it impossible for middle-aged men to approach Misty. At the same time, the twisting and circling steel snake also accelerated the collapse of this layer. The giant steel snake follows the will of its owner Misty and blocks anyone who approaches her. At the same time, after removing the hallucination, Misty stood in the center of the giant steel snake, opened the mechanical longbow in her hand, loosened the bowstring with her fingertips, and shot burning red flames at the 2 bounty hunters surrounding Vile of arrows. The bounty hunter, who only wanted to knock Will down, never imagined that Misty, who was held back by 2 teammates, would still have the strength to deal with them. The bow and arrow sniper that came from the blind corner of her vision hit the red heart. The red lotus arrow with powerful impact penetrated the bounty hunter's strong body and was firmly nailed to the far wall. The wall cracked under the buffer of the strong flesh, remaining on the edge of being broken. The wound was not fatal. The bounty hunter who was pierced by the red lotus arrow tried to pull out the bow and arrow that was deeply embedded in his chest. Ouch, ouch, ouch dash. The next moment, the bounty hunter, who thought he had saved his life, howled like a slaughtering pig. The heat from Misty's red lotus arrow had not subsided, burning the skin and flesh off the bounty hunter's hand that held the end of the bow, and the bones were visible. His pain was far from over. The red flames that were ignited at the same time turned the human body composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen into a pool of flowing red molten metal in an instant. Good job, Misty. While the companion of the bounty hunter who had turned into lava was shocked by the horrific scene in front of him, Will quickly escaped from his hands and ran to rescue Misty. Naturally, the giant steel snake would not stop his companion Vale. The dark green short-handled dagger in his hand easily cut through the flesh and severed the carotid artery of the bounty hunter who was pressing Misty. He didn't carefully select this part to attack, it was just out of Weir's habit of preferring to kill with one blow. Blood spurted from the bounty hunter's neck and splashed onto Misty's body. The bright red blood staining the surface of the dark evening dress was not conspicuous enough, but the fresh blood sticking to the skin of the cheek was particularly dazzling. Will noticed something strange about Misty, and her expression immediately stiffened when blood spattered out. She still held the mechanical longbow tightly in her hand, as if she was exerting force unconsciously, as if she was afraid that it would slip from her hand. What Will knew was that Misty's long-term indifferent expression was finally breaking down. It was the fear she felt about something. Misty finally couldn't bear the pressure from her heart, and her legs collapsed and she sat on the ground. Isn't that a very emotional expression, Misty? Fear. In Will's eyes, he could see such an expression on Misty's face, as if he saw some kind of hope. Whether it was Will or a bounty hunter, any warrior accustomed to the battlefield could tell at a glance that Misty had already lost her fighting ability. There are only 2 bounty hunters left who are eyeing them, and Will must take on both responsibilities on Misty's behalf. He once again entered the battlefield with lightning speed, and he raised the knife neatly. The sharp blade and poison devoured the remaining bounty hunter beside Misty, and the human body disintegrated by the magical Jack the Ripper turned into a pure of organic meat. The bounty hunter who originally surrounded Weir a little further away didn't know if he had given up hope and didn't even think about escaping. He probably only thought about killing one by one, seizing the gap between Weir and his teammates to get in. The defensive loopholes of both of them were revealed. The only remaining magic tool in the hands of the bounty hunter was a magic short crossbow. He used unknown footwork to quickly close the distance between the 2 sides, bypassing the obstruction of the giant steel snake, and rushed to meet Miss, who was lying on the ground. Only 2 meters away. Misty, who couldn't even move her body, was now like fish on the chopping board, ready to be slaughtered. In the eyes of the bounty hunter, the little girl with a fearful face was such a piece of meat. The moment he bent his finger to pull the trigger, the corner of his mouth raised, and his smug expression was frozen at this moment forever. More blood splashed onto Misty's face and body, including the blood of the bounty hunter who thought she had succeeded, and the blood spurting from Will's arm. "She is mine. Do you have my permission to do something to her?" Weir used his left hand, which had been strengthened after liberating the magic suit, to catch the bounty hunter's life-threatening arrow. The ultra-high-frequency vibration of the magic break tore the muscles of his left arm. But Will used the strength of his bones to hold the arrow firmly in front of Misty's eyes and never let go. As for the bounty hunter, who maintained his last posture, his skin was dyed the same dark green color as Weir's magic power in just a few seconds. He had turned into a stiff corpse, and the poison of the magic suit Jack the Ripper had seeped into every cell in his body. Will struggled to raise his mangled left arm, turned the direction of the arrow away from Misty's face and let go of his hand. The arrow, which still did not lose the ultra-high frequency vibration, shot diagonally upward, penetrated the ruins and hit the front wall. Crush. Well. Having seen blood with her own eyes and having made blood with her own hands, Misty was not moved. But when she felt the touch of blood at this moment, she was forced to vomit in embarrassment. The giant steel snake turned into magic particles and disappeared after the death of the last enemy. The only thing left in place was the little girl who kept retching her stomach juices, her tears mixed with the vomited things. The muscles of Will's left arm were completely torn, and the bones were visible. He only temporarily used the poison of the magic weapon Jack the Ripper to paralyze the remaining nerves and relieve the pain. He held his left arm that was almost useless and walked to the embarrassed Misty. Misty had absolutely nothing to throw up, and now she was just holding her hands on the ground and gasping for air. Vale squatted down in front of Misty, his left arm hanging down was still dripping with blood. He stretched out his right hand to hold Misty's face. It was a crying face stained with tears, saliva remaining at the corner of the mouth, and long hair spread out in disorder. Such an unsightly expression became even more attractive in Weir's eyes. "Misty, I saved you, and your life belongs to me. Since it has become mine, it cannot be destroyed by others. If someone wants to destroy you, I will get rid of him for you. After all, it is the instinct of all living things to protect their territory and belongings." Misty's tears were not tears shed because she was moved by being saved. The long eyelashes stained by tears were hung with crystal clear tears, and the hazy eyes contained some strange charm, which aroused Weir's interest in the girl in front of him whose eyes did not reflect his figure. And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 457. After the battle between the Nemesis Society and that company, the leading company with a 10-digit market share in the Tiberi Kingdom collapsed without any suspense. The reason reported in the news was the dispute caused by internal disagreements. The other technology party organizations that were suppressed by that company fulfilled the content of the alliance transaction with Nemesis and opened up various relationships with the technology party in the Tiburai kingdom for them. This really laid the fuse for the science and technology party to launch a riot 2 years later, occupying Tiburai Royal Academy with armed forces, assassinating the royal family of the BZ Empire, and provoking a war between the two countries. However, after that, Misty, who returned to the stronghold inside the World Tree, was still the same. He eats in a proper manner, not saying anything unnecessary, and when he is not working, he hugs his knees and huddles in the corner of the wall. Has the psychological trauma after seeing the blood healed? Lalicia first heard about Misty's ugly appearance on the battlefield from Will. She originally thought that Misty would be shaken by this and would no longer show her calm attitude, but it backfired. That kind of psychological trauma should have been there before she came to us. It was not brought to her this time. It just happened to be activated. Will seemed to think about a certain problem for a while, and then said to Lalicia, "Sister, I will partner with Misty from now on. Don't you always insist on flying solo?" Although her magic equipment ability does score very high, if she has that kind of flaw, she will definitely be a drag on the battlefield. I paid such a high price to keep her alive. Weir raised the arm under his white windbreaker. The muscle contusion and laceration had been treated medically. As long as he continued to practice for a while, he could fully recover. At most, it will leave eye-catching scars on the skin. For Weir, this level of injury was nothing at all. He had also experienced fights far more brutal than this level. Misty is now my property, and I have to take it with me when needed. Otherwise, if she gets lost or is damaged by someone, I will suffer a big loss. Perhaps seeing through Will's thoughts, Lalicia teased him with a playful smile. That's an ugly excuse. It's just my reserve. If you are so reluctant to let her go, why don't you just put a collar around her neck and walk with her on a leash every day? I don't have that kind of bad taste. My possessions should have a will of their own. What I want is the kind of person who makes me willing to waste time digging out secrets, not the kind of pet that sticks to me when I wave. Lalicia just smiled incredulously at Will's far-fetched assertion. Anyway, if you arrange her properly, there will be no problem. It is not uncommon for two people to be paired up in the Nemesis Society. As long as it does not affect your performance, the people above will probably acquiesce. There is no need to ask the people above for instructions. Don't we just need the consent of the eldest sister? I didn't agree. Lalicia, who was just about to leave, turned her head to stare at him again after hearing what Weir said. The most dangerous time is when people have contact, no matter how determined they are. Any belief may be shaken by the presence of another person. If your presence can change Misty, then Misty's presence can also change you. Does the eldest sister mean to oppose Misty and I teaming up? I have never said such a thing, but this is the reason why most members of the Nemesis Society choose to fly solo. Human beings are creatures that cannot understand each other, and they cannot even fully understand themselves. People who cannot understand. If you want to comfort each other, you can only keep testing each other and keep a suitable distance where neither person will get hurt. Lalicia didn't care if Will listened to what she said on the spur of the moment, and turned around lightly and left the colorful courtyard. Weir, who was left alone, raised his left arm, which was randomly wrapped with loops of bandages, above his head, and the noon sunlight filtered through the knotted gaps in the bandages. Looking back on that moment now, he didn't particularly think about having to rescue Misty. People with insufficient abilities can only accept the fate of self-destruction and cannot blame anyone. The weak eat the strong, this is the iron law of society. This rule was originally an iron rule for Will's survival, but after seeing the cold Misty showing such a miserable expression that only a weak person would show, Will suddenly became interested in her. It is a desire to discover. How many different expressions can Misty have? How many other things could scare her? What kind of expression could I make her show? At that moment, Weir's mind was filled with this almost perverted desire to explore, so he saved her life. He exchanged an arm for her life and gained the right to treat her as his own. Although Will can easily find various reasons to whitewash this approach, at this moment, Will's iron rules of survival have indeed changed because of Misty's existence. Coming to Misty's room from the courtyard, she had finished her lunch honestly. The used tableware is placed on the round table in the center of the room. It seems that there is no intention to clean it up by myself. If there is no one else to clean it every day, it will pile up here. Are you interested in going out with me today? Will deliberately raised his bandaged left arm from under his white windbreaker to show Misty, thanks to you, all the tasks that may cost you your life recently have been given to other people. Just do it, and your time will suddenly be freed up. However, Misty's eyes did not lift from the sheets as he expected, and he wondered if she had listened to Will's words. He could only put down his arms helplessly, sit on the edge of the dining table with his legs crossed, and pick up the tableware she used with one hand to play with it. Misty, do you understand your position? You are my possession now. You can do it even if you just echo me with a word or two, right? It sounded like their positions were reversed, with Will begging Misty for a reaction. Even though the words came to this, Misty still went her own way, completely lacking the consciousness of possessions that Will said. Although you are mine now, I don't like to ask you to do something with orders or anything like that. Although using strength to make you submit should be addictive, doing so also feels like bullying. No, both of us are magic equipment holders. It might be difficult to tell who is stronger and who is weaker in a duel. If we hadn't met on that occasion, then I would definitely be interested in having a good time with you now. Today, Weir's persuasion can be said to have failed again. As always and with no unexpected ending, Weir didn't feel much regret. The left arm that cannot be used freely for several months is regarded as a replacement of equal value, and there is nothing worth being unwilling to do. He put down the tableware that Misty had used and left the room where he came to visit every day. But before Weir took a few steps, he noticed the breath behind him. He turned around and saw Misty getting off the bed with her naked feet, silently stepping on the wooden floor of the corridor and following him. Misty! Aren't you going out? Facing the slightly surprised Will, Misty finally whispered her first words to him since they met in an emotional tone. In the eyes of others, they might think that Weir used the excuse of possession to force her to compromise. Weir didn't know whether this was true. But he couldn't help but burst out laughing, almost maniacally. This is probably what Leisha said, a sign that something is changing. Whether it was Will or Misty who was changed, that kind of thing didn't matter at all. All in all, it's enough to know that the two of them seem to get along. Recalling the past is not about recalling the past. In the room of the aviation magic ship Yatrashal, Misty, who was sitting by the window with her head tilted and looking out the window, knew this. As far as the eye can see, the thick clouds never seem to move. The blue sky seems to have no end, and even time seems to have stopped flowing, looking extremely lonely. She was just a little sentimental. Misty knew that Veer had never liked her. He only brought himself with him because he wanted to explore more unknowns in himself. When she first accepted his invitation, Misty couldn't remember exactly what her state of mind was at that time. Because the two of them have reached this point, there is no need to recall those gray memories that have become the past. Misty only knew that it was because of her bloody physique that attracted Will's attention. He had told her so before. Very subtle point of interest. I didn't notice since when, I never left Will's side. It should have started from the first time she responded to his invitation, the first time she left the mansion and wandered around the capital of Sentia Principality. Following him seemed to have become a matter of course for Misty. She didn't know what kind of feelings she had for Will, but the only thing she was certain of was that those feelings were definitely not what humans call like and love. Perhaps from a certain point in time, I had accepted the fate of becoming his possession. Even if Will only interacted with her for such a simple reason, Misty did not complain at all. After everything was over, the two of them agreed to travel the continent together. When did Weir come up with it? Misty turned back from the window and looked at Will's sleeping profile. The left arm that used to block the bounty hunter's arrows for Misty was no longer there, leaving only an empty sleeve. Misty saw it and felt that a piece of the puzzle was missing in a corner of her heart. That agreement seemed to have been obtained after the two of them jointly hunted the mansion of an unknown noble named Fu. In that battle, the magic costume of the nobleman was also very powerful, and both of them almost died. A long time had passed since the battle ended, and Veer suddenly made the agreement on a whim. Weir did not elaborate on the specific reasons. Only this time after he told Ika, who was their mortal enemy, did Misty know what he really thought. Apart from being shocked, I was also more confused and unwilling. Obviously you already know so much about me, but I still don't know you at all. Misty had expected a moment like this. They would eventually pay a heavy price for what they had done, but Misty didn't expect this day to come so suddenly. In her heart, her feelings for Weir seemed to be clearer. As long as it is your wish, I will fulfill it for you. So Misty gave up. Whether it is the restrictions on freedom imposed on Ika and others, or the resistance to the fate that will eventually usher in. Misty just wants to fulfill the wish that Veer is really after, both of them together. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 458. Central Sea. Outside of the continent, whose complete picture has yet to be explored, it is far away from the western waters where the Sea Mist Fleet operates. Perhaps across the Central Sea, a new continent may be found somewhere in this world on the other side of the ocean, but so far no race has the ability to explore it. The aviation magic ship Yggdrasil is like a silver-white comet, dragging its graceful tail across the sky. Their altitude had dropped below the clouds. Master, we are very close. Slow down, Hitomi. Ika looked out the window at the scenery, where the sky and the sea reflected each other. The splashing waves, the occasional high-rolling waves, and the mighty white caps will gradually return to calmness. Different from the tranquility brought by the blue sky, the huge blue canvas brings a majestic look. This is not the first time that everyone has appreciated the sea. In the days of the Sea Fog Fleet, they were with the sea all day long. But this is the first time to overlook the huge blue canvas from such a high angle. The boundless and jumping sea makes the viewer's heart swell. There are many islands scattered on the sea below Yggdrasil, most of which are small islands that are lush and green, exuding endless vitality. It is said that the concentration of magic particles around the world tree is very high, which may be the reason why those islands are covered with vegetation. The magic particles contained in the air are the source of life for everything in the world. Now everyone knows that the magic particles on which everything in the world depends for survival originated from the world tree, which further confirms this hypothesis. There shouldn't be a fourth or fifth level sea monster hiding down here, right? Ling, do you think you have a phobia of the deep sea? The so-called abyssal phobia is a strange disease in which people become nervous when they see the sea because they regard the deep sea as a terrifying abyss. It is said that people who are afraid of dark and confined spaces may also develop thalassophobia. You can't see anything in the sea. The further you go down, the darker it becomes. It must be easy to think of some strange things. But I have never been afraid. I have been in the sea before. Stop talking, Liuyan is starting to imagine. I am not afraid. Patients with severe deep-sea phobia can simply imagine that they are in a dark and closed space, and some kind of huge black shadow suddenly appears under their feet, and the next moment they are swallowed by the unknown behemoth with its bloody mouth. The fear will be vivid in your mind, as if you have experienced it yourself. Non-existent. Hitomi, are you saying there are no high-level monsters here? The intelligent monsters will not covet the magic power of the world tree. That approach is self-destruction. There will be no intelligent monsters other than the world tree in what you call the Central Sea. Do you mean occupying the mountain and becoming the king? Just listening to Hitomi and Hikaru's description of the world tree, it seemed miraculous. Aika increasingly wants to explore the true identity of the legendary ancient monster that is located outside the 5th level and is the root of the world. No, no, we are here to help Way 11 wake up. Aika, what are you talking about alone there? Yggdrasil does not have a directional device that can determine the location of the world tree. The specific location of the world tree is sensed by Hitomi's intuition, so as to adjust the direction of Yggdrasil. Aika understands this way. Hitomi's feeling should be similar to the feeling of being connected by the magical path that is invisible to daily life between herself and Lolo. Maybe there is a connection like that between Hitomi and the world tree. After all, Hitomi's existence symbolizes the world tree itself. In addition to the islands of different shapes and the sea with similar scenery, there is always the illusion that you may get lost in the vast ocean. If the world tree is really just ahead as Hitomi said, with a giant body that is said to be rooted on the bottom of the sea and with the blue sky above its head, like Optimus Prime, its shadow should be almost visible by now. But so far, there is still no visible change in the horizontal line in front of Yggdrasil. Hitomi, prepare to enter the barrier of the world tree. Eh? What did you say? The sudden announcement, and as soon as Hitomi finished speaking, everyone felt as if they had crossed a certain boundary. It was a strange feeling that was difficult to describe in words. As if to prove that the strange feeling was not groundless, the clear sky suddenly became covered with dark clouds. There were frequent deafening thunders in the distance, like the low roars of hungry beasts squeezed from the depths of their throats. This feeling? Well, it's very similar to when we broke through the ruins barrier before. The only people present who could recall the same feeling were Aika and Ling, who had participated in the exploration of the ruins of Shimizuki Academy together. If the ruins were born from the magic power inherited from the world tree, then it would make sense to have a similar feeling at this time. The originally monotonous horizontal lines have undergone significant changes. At first, there was a thick fog all around, making all the outlines of the scenery blurry. Today's weather was originally very clear, the airspace in the Central Sea area was cloudless, and the view was very wide. However, the beautiful blue landscape has now turned into gray. The soothing sea breeze also turned into a terrifying violent wind. The abnormal wind pressure even forced the huge body of the super-large aviation magic ship off its planned orbit. Hitomi, it seems that World Tree doesn't welcome you very much. I originally thought that Hitomi and the World Tree were born from the same root, and that approaching the World Tree would not be much hindered. I didn't expect that I would receive such treatment in advance without even seeing the shadow of the World Tree. I'm just the Master's magic costume. Yes, you are just my Hitomi. Aika quickly walked to Hitomi's side. It's easy for the two of us to break through this level of barrier together, right? No problem. Except for Aika and Hitomi, who entered the state without authorization, everyone else watched silently as the master and slave built a barrier in the luxurious cab that was inaccessible to others. The violent storm in front of him continued to consume the power and magic power of Yggdrasil. There was no time left for them to hesitate. As the root of the world, the surroundings of the world tree are inviolable forbidden areas, so far no creature can approach the world tree from the outside. Even the body of the world tree is hidden in the invisible barrier. Under the cover of the violent storm, the majestic shadow of the world tree was still invisible, and even the scenery outside the window of Yggdrasil disappeared from the field of vision without a trace. A deafening loud noise followed and exploded at a very close distance, which was exactly the same as the barrier of the ruins. This can't be an ordinary natural phenomenon. Even magic equipment can't build this kind of barrier. The World Tree is the mother of all magic costumes, and her enchantment may be the most powerful enchantment in the world. If Xiao 11 were here now, Xue Ziji can't do it either. She is just a fallen leaf of the World Tree. What Hitong means is that Wei 11 only has 1/10,000th of the power of the World Tree. In front of the Creator, the power of all living things seems so small and powerless. Don't worry so much, we are already here, there is no option to go back. Hitomi, no matter what, we have to break through the barrier of the World Tree. Several tornadoes were like Optimus Prime standing on the sea, forming a force surrounding Yutra Hill, as if a giant beast with wisdom regarded them as the target of destruction. There were flashes of light everywhere among the thick clouds, like a group of giant golden snakes raising their heads and swaying. I'm sorry, Wei 11. I don't know if it was because he was getting closer to the World Tree, but Ika felt that the connection between himself and Wei 11 became more active. I want to borrow your magic. This feeling is incredible. Although it is ethereal, it can be firmly grasped in your hands. Ika has an unfounded confidence that she can do it now. Master, body. I know, I'll pay attention. Controlling Hitomi and Wei 11 at the same time, Ika had learned enough lessons last time. Ika prayed in her heart that her body could produce some kind of antibody to resist this side effect. Pure white magic light shines around Ika, her vision is filled with light, and familiar power flows through the contract path between Ika and Wei 11. Can do it. This is the wish of Wei 11 and me. Pure white magic circles appeared on the top and bottom of Yggdrasil, placing the majestic hull in between like a sandwich. At this moment, Ika had absolute control over this power. The phosphorus birdcage. The two-layered pure white magic array turned into a pale geometric magic barrier, surrounding the body of Yutra Hill layer by layer. This is Xiao 11's magic. Why would Ika and Wei 11? This is the power of love between the holder and the magical costume that has made a contract, my master. What are you talking about? Wait a minute, Ika seems to be in pain. Despite successfully deploying Wei 11's strongest defense, Ika was suffering from the expected headache. Hitomi, don't worry about me, just move forward at the maximum speed. Ika put all her energy into maintaining Kang Phosphorus's birdcage, gritted her teeth and said to Hitomi, who was looking here uneasily. Ika, don't force it. Ling could only watch anxiously, unable to do anything for Ika, who was now suffering from pain. The light next to her turned her head to look at such a master, and her figure disappeared silently. What do you mean, Hikaru? Is this really possible? Miss Ling. Although I don't know if it can be done, it doesn't matter. Compared with the small problems on my side, Ika has endured more pain for us. Ling blushed and ended the communication with Guan unilaterally, and quickly approached Ika. Ling, don't come close to me now, it may be dangerous. I don't want to either, Ling interrupted his warning even more anxiously than the client. Ika, promise me, no matter what I do next, you won't waver. What are you talking about? Hurry up and promise me. No matter what I do, I won't affect Wei 11's magic. I see. Ika responded seriously to Ling's request and returned all her attention to maintaining Wei 11's magic outfit. Ling walked forward in 2 steps, raised Ika's face and kissed his lips without concealment. At this moment, Ika finally knew why Ling warned him. Despite this, his magic power inevitably wavered, the pale barrier appeared weak, and the hull of Yggdrasil shook suddenly. But when she thought of Ling's determination to do this, and that her efforts would never be in vain, Ika quickly stabilized her mentality. When their lips touched, another kind of magic that had never been felt before flowed into Ika's body. The kiss didn't last long, but Ling closed her eyes tightly and pressed against Ika's body. Although she may not know the true purpose of this kiss, she still takes such a sacred act seriously. After a few seconds, Ling left Ika's body with crimson cheeks and rapid breathing. Don't get me wrong, This is just what the situation requires. Her reaction was more obvious than Aika's. She had clearly reminded Aika to stay calm before. Just tell me that you can share my spiritual world with you, part of it. Do you feel better? During the kiss, Aika clearly felt that the pain from her splitting headache was relieved a lot. Thank you, Ling, it's completely fine. Ling raised her arm to cover her mouth, summoned the light flame sword with her other hand, and held the red gold sword across her chest. 2 layers of magic arrays overlapped, which were Wei 11's magic and Ling's magic. Multiple giant tornadoes rolled up from the sea have locked their targets and are constantly approaching the hull of Yutra Hill. Aika, you can definitely do it. Feeling the warm magic power of Ling integrated into her body, Aika merged the power of the 2 girls into one. Kang Hui's birdcage. The pale barrier was plated with a thin layer of gold, and the pure white and red gold magic particles blended into the silvery magic light of Yutra Hill. Thanks to everyone's concerted efforts, Yggdrasil showed maneuverability that was incompatible with its majestic hull and shuttled through the gaps in the tornado herd. Although the violent tornado pursued it like a bloodthirsty beast, Yggdrasil remained unmoved at all. Hitomi controlled the huge hull and calmly continued to dodge. It was unbelievable that it was so huge. The steel body can actually show such superb mobility. If one part is not enough, use 2 parts, if 2 parts are not enough, use 3 parts. The combined strength of everyone is enough to break through the roadblocks set by the root of the world. Hitomi, are you ready? Hitomi, who was controlling Yggdrasil to avoid the tornado attack, understood Aika's intention just by looking at his words. No problem. She answered calmly, completely unmoved by the storm outside. Aika showed a smile that predicted victory, and at the same time used her own strength that was pressed at the bottom of the box. Mechanical alchemy Yggdrasil. Multiple sets of gunports throughout the Yggdrasil hull were opened at the same time. The magic cannons converged at one point, erupting with astonishing magic power, piercing through the dark cumulonimbus clouds shrouding the sky with thunderous momentum. The magic cannons passed through traces naturally form a path. Go. The road has been opened, just keep moving. As long as you don't stop, the road is ahead. So, don't stop. Aika broke through his own limits. He gritted his teeth and stared intently at the trajectory created by the magic cannon of Yggdrasil. With Ling, Tong, Wei 11, and many people watching and waiting for him by his side, Aika seemed to have grown wings and gained the power to fly freely into the sky. The next moment, Yutra Hill finally broke into the thick, dark cumulonimbus clouds, and went upstream along the path that everyone had opened up with unabated momentum. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 459. Time goes back to the time when the Queen of the BZ Empire, Ziming opened a new chapter in the revolution. Lilith, Aika and others said goodbye in the underground passage in the northwest district of the imperial capital. Aika and the others have goals that they must achieve on their own. Lilith cannot follow them in her current position, so she can only give them her blessings. Even if you are just behind his back, it is the responsibility of the senior to support the unreliable junior. Lilith just thought this in her heart. After the brief encounter, she regained her temper and hesitated to speak. She led several national magicians from the Roxy family behind her into the underground space where Aika and the others had fought hard. However, someone appeared there that Aika and the others had not mentioned before they said goodbye. What appeared in front of Lilith and others was a middle-aged man wearing a crisp suit and black sunglasses. The left lens of the black sunglasses had obvious cracks, but the middle-aged man didn't seem to care. He had already carried Misty, who had passed out with her eyes tightly closed, on his shoulders like a life-size doll. Previously, Aika had only said that there was still one remnant of the Nemesis Society here, and that he had been seriously injured by the magic equipment of his comrades. He might have lost hope of rescue. Lilith only learned the minimum information from the people who left here before. At least there should be no one here who can move, and Ica will hand over the cleared site to Lilith. It was not surprising that an unexpected person broke into the scene, but after Lilith saw the middle-aged man turn his head when he heard multiple footsteps coming from behind, she even asked the most basic question about his identity. All forgotten. You are. The middle-aged man overlapped with a figure from her childhood memories. Although her figure has become taller and bullier, and she also wears black sunglasses that block her vision, her age seems to be nearly 10 years older than when she parted forever, and her angular face is coated with a layer of vicissitudes, but Lilith firmly believes that she is in front of her. This person is the same person that I remember from my childhood. Dad. No matter what, she firmly believed that she could never mistake the face that was only left in memory 10 years ago. You are Dad, right? The middle-aged man carrying Komaki on his shoulders seemed to be interested in Lilith's shouts. His eyes under black sunglasses stared at the girl in a dignified uniform in front of him. You got the wrong person, a little girl from the BZ Empire. I am in the same group as the little girl you want to arrest. You can call me No 5. The middle-aged man just answered her in a mocking tone and raised his free right hand. The same number was engraved on the back of a black fingerless glove. You lied. Lilith seemed to have forgotten that there were subordinates who admired her behind her, and blurted out her inner doubts. You are definitely the father, the national magician Addison. Lilith originally thought that her father had passed away forever decades ago, and when the BZ Empire held a funeral for him, she attended as a family member. Now that the person who should have been sleeping forever appears in front of her again after a few years, how can Lilith still remain calm? How to explain it? The middle-aged man rubbed the back of his head as if he was really troubled. In fact, the facts he said next were so simple that he didn't need to worry about how to explain Lilith in order to understand. I am not the Addison you know. To be more precise, I am Holmanx, recreated from Addison's genetic material. Have you heard of the term artificial human? Artificial, human. I don't blame you if you haven't heard of it. This is the technology of the gods. Humans don't even have the technology to maintain this body. So now I am just a lackey of the Nemesis Society. Without their regular maintenance, I will lose power. Holmanx, that's all. And, I feel the need to emphasize again, I don't know who you are, and I can't be the father you're looking for. Only the man who calls himself number 5 knows whether the gaze under the black sunglasses is only looking at Lilith or all of them. All the middle-aged man's emotions were hidden by the dark lenses except for the deep tones of his words. It's a lie. The more Lilith listened, the more she couldn't accept it. She wriggled her lips in disbelief. Why? Even though number 5 denied it so completely, Lilith still did not give up her illusory hope. She had never heard of the artificial human technology mentioned by number 5, but that was not important. He admitted that he was indeed related to Addison. If the genetic material was the same, they could be considered to be the same person. But number 5 insisted that he didn't know who he was. Lilith didn't know how to face this fact. It was unclear whether what number 5 said was true or false. You really don't know me? I'm Lilith. She still hoped that she would grow from an ignorant little girl to a graceful young girl, making her father whom she had not seen for decades unrecognizable. But the atmosphere among middle-aged men did not change at all because of Lilith's heartfelt talk. The hope in Lilith's heart was dimmed a little by his unmoving attitude. Number 5 stood proudly in front of so many national magicians, holding his chest high and showing no signs of wavering as he faced a formidable enemy. You are all national magicians under the Roxy family of the Fu family, right? You brought out such a large lineup just to deal with the Nemesis Association. What, do you want to arrest me now? Lilith was still not sure whether the arrogant middle-aged man in front of her was the same person as her deceased father. But she couldn't give up on her mission to come here. If you give up resistance, you can be given a lighter sentence. No matter what the identity of number 5 is, Lilith, as the commander of the Roxy family's magician force, has the responsibility to arrest the criminals who caused the trouble in accordance with the law. What's more, the middle-aged man in front of him openly admitted that he belonged to the criminal organization wanted nationwide. Hey, Commander, why are you so unsure of your words? It seems that the Roxy family is coming to an end. Number 5 spoke provocative words that mocked Lilith's hesitation, and put down Komaki, who was carrying him on his shoulders, to let her lie at his feet. Then he lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, and exhaled the pungent smoke. Originally, I just wanted to recover the core of this plan, but I didn't expect to be entangled by a troublesome opponent. Number 5 held the half-burned cigarette in the corner of his mouth, stretched out his hand and bent his index finger to make a provocative gesture. Come on, let me see what you kids, who are responsible for the future of the BIS Empire, are really capable of. The strength of Number 5 was beyond Lilith's expectations. His magic is very rare. He can turn the smoke from cigarettes into explosions to attack, and his physical fitness is above the average level of the country's magicians. His strong body seems to be the product of being strengthened by some kind of magic. Far beyond the knowledge of Lilith, the top student at Frost Moon Academy. Even the formally trained national magicians of the Roxy family were defeated one by Number 5 single-handedly. Are you surprised, little girl? Hallmonk still has quite an advantage in combat. After all, it is an artificial life form originally created with the goal of war machines. Compared with magic machines assembled from parts, it is at least no better. It breaks so easily. In the empty underground space, only Lilith and Number 5 were left, standing opposite each other. Thanks to the vast area of the underground space in the northwest district of the BZ Empire, and the use of special materials for testing magic machinery as the building skeleton, even after the fierce melee just now, the underground space did not collapse. Lilith cautiously raised her staff across her chest. In the previous fierce battles, she had always used her exclusive magic to support the Roxy family's national magician force from behind. Nature elves can easily change the local environment and construct magic, and can become excellent auxiliary magic in many situations. However, now she is the only one who still has the ability to confront Number 5, which means that she will have to use her full strength to defeat the seemingly indestructible middle-aged man in front of her. So, what should we do now? You are the only one left here. You should also know that it is impossible for you to defeat me alone, right? So it is in line with the commander to see the situation clearly and give up the mission. This is a position that relies on your brain to fulfill. Sorry, I cannot do it. Really? Number 5 seemed to have expected that Lilith would give such an answer. He blew out smoke from the corner of his mouth holding a cigarette, and the smoke curled up. Little girl, before I help you wake up, I would like to advise you. Just to put it bluntly, state magician is not a career worth pursuing as a dream. That's how it looks from my point of view. Lilith did not expect that the advice that Number 5 seemed to give out casually would actually be impartial and hit the target of the dream she had cherished since she was a child. It was also one of the reasons why she was standing here now. Is it really a coincidence? Although it is a recognized state agency, the previous tasks of the state magician were not only to ensure the security of the BIS Empire like the commissioner of the Imperial City Defense Bureau, but also to participate in many inhumane experiments, such as human experiments, etc. from 100 years ago until now. All are being carried out. The BZ Empire has never given up on developing mimetic magic equipment that can replace magic equipment. Countless national magicians have been swallowed up by experiments in developing mimetic magic equipment in the past 100 years. The Nemesis Society is just repeating what they have already done. It's just work to lay the foundation. Human experiments. Your father's name is Addison, right? That man must be one of the many victims of the mimicry magic suit development project. In the end, only the genetic material is left, hoping that one day he will get new technology and create the same thing. To use an excellent national magician as a substitute and then be officially labeled as having died in the line of duty is hardly a relief. These things, how do you know? Lilith still couldn't accept the fact that number 5 revealed so many secrets about the Empire that were either true or false. She couldn't believe that she lost her only family member forever for such a stupid reason. There are many people in the BZ Empire who know about that kind of thing. Your Minister of Military Affairs, Faustin, should know it very well. After all, he is a high-level person who has participated in this plan. However, he has always been too upright and knows I quit after the truth. If you want to know about those things in the past, go to Faustin and he won't refuse to tell you. Number 5 seemed to be Addison himself, talking about things in the past that Lilith didn't know. Then the place that best reflects the value of national magicians is the battlefield, such as the current war between the Bis Empire and the Tiberii Kingdom. But isn't that originally the responsibility of the national magician? Since you have chosen the position of national magician, it is natural to fulfill your obligations. Lilith already knew that after knowing so many truths, she who still spoke like this was the real anomaly. But she was simply driven by unwillingness and wanted to forcibly subvert No. 5's remarks to prove that there was no doubt that she was standing here at this moment. It is also your responsibility to inherit the family business, but you chose to embark on the path of a national magician despite the firm opposition of your family. Are you really sure that you, as the eldest daughter of the family, have different identities from your father-in-law? Going back to the previous topic, no matter how unreasonable the order is, the state magician must carry out the order from above. In contrast, the Nemesis Society does similar things, and it still feels a little meaningful. In order to, although it sounds unrealistic to act in the future and no one can predict what changes will happen in the future, it is still a righteous move to overthrow the already decadent regime. Lilith was speechless by No. 5's sophistry that could not find any loopholes. Okay, I only know so much about your father. Your family's past has been investigated by the Nemesis Society in advance. The fledgling girl has already stood up as a national magician at such an age. The position of an official will make people interested no matter what, right? When the cigarette burned to the end, number 5 threw the cigarette butt at his feet and stamped it out with his toes. Come on, little girl. Don't you want to carry out the justice you insist on and become a magician of justice? Then do you have the ability to prove it to the enemies you should defeat? End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 460. Under the instigation of number 5, Lilith raised the staff again, which felt a little heavy. The hands holding the staff were still shaking uncontrollably. She has not faced a real enemy since her battle with the 4th-level monster cave beetle in the final test of her 2nd grade. In the past, when I was in Shimizuki Academy, I had reliable companions by my side, but in reality, I would eventually face a situation where I had to prove myself with my own strength, just like now. The body of Lilith's magic tool staff is the diamond ring worn on the ring finger of her right hand. It is the oath ring that Ika put on her personally. It was precisely because of Ika's existence and his hand to save her when she fell off the cliff that Lilith made up her mind to become a just magician. So now, as long as she recalls the solid back of the unreliable junior in her heart, Lilith will no longer tremble or be afraid. No problem, I can do it. If you can't even prove yourself, you have no right to stay by his side. Lulu, Ling, and Wei 11, every girl around Ika has their own strength. Without the determination to stand alongside them, Lilith would not have the courage to continue standing here. Number 5 noticed a change in Lilith's eyes and showed an interested smile. I am the National Magician Commander, Lilith. On the 5th, I will arrest you here for joining a terrorist organization. Do I need an answer from my side? The criminal who is about to be arrested will definitely have to fight to the end. Lilith's magic covered this dim space without light, and all the natural elves in different realms were brought under her control. The steel elf, obey the call of the contractor, build a knight to guard the throne. The surrounding steel ground rose like a hill, and in compliance with Lilith's orders, the same steel body as the dragoon was constructed. Inspired by that pile. The dragoons controlled by Komaki before were not destroyed, they just lost their power and could not continue their activities. Lilith used their appearance to construct corresponding magic. The dragoons wielding giant swords and shields charged towards number 5 like a bull that had lost its reins. The steel dragoon built by the steel elf not only has a form similar to the original version, but also has a solid body that seems to be made of ultrafine parts, and its flexibility is no different from the dragoon that Komaki controls using the magic suit Puppet Master's cross. Number 5 used smoke to trigger a violent explosion to block the dragoon's impact, and then relied on his strengthened body to compete. The underground space here is used to secretly manufacture giant spider-like magic machines for war. It is also used to test the power of the experimental works. The materials used to create such a place are naturally the most solid ones that the Bis Empire can obtain. Building materials. Even number 5 cannot easily defeat the dragoon's steel body, but this is not enough to completely defeat the middle-aged man who has the same almost steel body. The elves of fire, the elves of ice, give supreme glory to the knight's sword and shield. The dragoon's steel body was instantly covered with flaming ice, and every swing of the giant sword and shield was accompanied by a burst of magic power. Compared to the magical mechanical dragoons that require a molecular power furnace to convert magic power, the steel dragoons built by Lilith's natural elves have stronger attack power. The dark elf gives the dead an eternal abyss, the steel elf uses the body of a knight to seal the souls under the sword. The dark magic quickly spread in this space like a swamp, and enveloped number 5 like a thick fog, blocking his vision. At the same time, the steel dragoons besieging number 5 stopped moving at this moment, and the materials that originally constructed the body of steel instantly turned into a cubic cage, imprisoning number 5 within it. The combat effectiveness of number 5 has been evident in the previous melee. The capacity of the natural elves in the underground space here is not sufficient, and Lilith is not confident that she can defeat number 5 with the magic created by the natural elves alone. So she gave full play to the flexible thinking she learned in Shigetsuki Academy, and sealed No 5's mobility with seamless combos. Unless a summoning magician can summon a monster with a strength equivalent to the 4th level, it is impossible to completely supply magic power to the summoned beast so that it can fight freely. Otherwise, they will use auxiliary tactics while controlling the summons. Lilith originally had a more violent attack method, but her purpose was only to arrest number 5, not to execute him on the spot, so she did not go to that extent. It's over. Next, all he needs to do is contact the kingdom's magician troops on the ground to come and receive number 5. Now, he only needs to maintain the confinement of number 5. Just when Lilith breathed a sigh of relief, the message from the steel elf who imprisoned number 5 made her heart hang up again. The surface of the cubic cage gradually turned red, as if it was being heated from within, and was then blasted apart by the power from within. The building materials used to test the power of the supergiant magical machinery seemed to have turned into fragile plastic. A pair of rough hands stretched out from the broken cubic cage and tore the steel alloy apart forcefully. Although he looked a little embarrassed in Lilith's seamless combo, and his straight suit was torn in many places, No 5's footsteps were still powerful, and he did not suffer any substantial damage, and he still had enough power to fight back. Little girl, do you still want to let go when facing an enemy like me? This kind of useless kindness will only make you suffer more losses in the future. Today I will help you keep it in your heart. Number 5, who forced his way out of the steel elf's confinement, moved his whole body. The next moment, he tightened his leg muscles and rushed toward Lilith, who was still standing there, with footsteps as loud as thunder. Steel elf. Lilith hurriedly raised her staff. She had no time to chant, and hurriedly recalled the nature elves who had withdrawn from the useless cubic cage. Lilith has never been complacent about how powerful a magician she is. If it weren't for her ability to summon natural spirits to further build magic with her special physique, she wouldn't be able to use so many high-level natural magics continuously. With the help of nature spirits, Lilith's magic has risen to a new level. This is a unique advantage for summoning magicians. Without summoning nature elves through chanting, their full abilities cannot be exerted, and the magic constructed by nature elves is naturally limited. But they still work together to build layers of high steel walls in front of Lilith like huge waves on a calm sea, blocking No 5's dashing route. It's useless, it's useless, it's useless. Number 5 waved his iron fist, and used only his flesh and blood to blast apart the steel alloy layer by layer. But when Number 5 squandered his power and exceeded the limit, Lilith also clearly saw that with No 5's reckless attack, the flesh and blood appeared cracks like blood vessels all over the body. Hallmink's body is not as tough as Lilith imagined. If it is overused, it will be overloaded and collapse. Stop, your body won't be able to hold on if you keep fighting like this. Ha 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 ha, you still have the time to care about me at this time. Finally, Number 5 broke through the last layer of defense built by the steel elf, and the iron fist struck the slender girl with unstoppable momentum. Fortunately, Lilith will not only support the magician from behind. She used her flexible body to bend her head back with all her strength, and No 5's iron fist swept past her chest with a whistling wind. Strangeness. Lilith originally thought that the power of this punch should not be underestimated, but the wind pressure it brought unexpectedly lacked the sense of oppression. I don't know if it was because No 5's body was on the verge of being broken, or because he deliberately lowered his strength. Without thinking too much, Lilith had to make a decisive decision. Before Number 5 could withdraw her fist, she crossed the staff over her thick arm and caught the end of the staff with her other hand, forming a posture where No 5's arm passed between the staff and her chest. Then Lilith suddenly pressed down the staff, used the reaction force from the squeeze between the staff and her arm to jump up, withdrew the staff and stepped on No 5's arm lightly over his head, while chanting. The elves of darkness give the dead the erosion under the moon's shadow. The deep darkness quickly gathered at the feet of Number 5, and the steel ground that was originally a foothold immediately sank and turned into a pitch-black quagmire. No matter how fast Number 5 reacted, the strong suction from directly below still gradually dragged his body into the quagmire. It's not finished yet. Lilith landed lightly behind Number 5, the skirt of her uniform drew a graceful arc, and the elegant staff handle made a sonorous and powerful knocking sound when it hit the steel ground. Elf of Light, follow the ancient covenant, the brilliance of the cross star. A huge amount of magic power rolled up from directly below the shadow mire, and a giant cross shining with golden light rose from the ground, sealing Number 5 in the shape of a cross like a martyr in the holy golden cross. Lilith used her staff to support her crumbling body, panting and trying to strengthen the absolute confinement that her companions had built for her. Absolutely, I can't let you escape again. No matter how powerful Lilith is, physical exertion is inevitable. Her shoulder-length short hair was stuck to her cheeks with sweat, but she didn't bother to smooth it away with her fingers, still trying her best to maintain the magic of the natural elf. The giant cross that shines brightly is nearly 3 meters high and has the special effect of suppressing magic. Even if Number 5 still has enough energy left to resist, it is impossible to escape the confinement of the cross on his own. Your body really can't hold it anymore, please, please don't continue to resist. Ha ha ha, the little girl is really always soft-hearted. Why did you show mercy to me at that time? What nonsense are you talking about? This is a life and death battle between the two of us. How can I still show mercy to you, ha ha ha. Sure enough, it was just Lilith's illusion that Number 5 felt that she had relaxed her strength at that time. The man in front of her had a familiar appearance in Lilith's memory, but his fighting style and tone of voice were different. Dad, doesn't know how to smoke. Number 5 was stunned at what Lilith suddenly whispered, and suddenly burst into laughter. If his whole body wasn't imprisoned by Lilith's magic, Number 5 would probably be holding his forehead, leaning back, and laughing. After laughing for a while, number 5 gradually stopped laughing and lowered his head. The pair of black sunglasses had added new scars from the previous battle, but still obscured No 5's sight. "Do you have any special feelings for your dad?" No 5's voice was much deeper than before. "Or is it that your dad left you a long time ago and left a huge mark in your heart? Isn't it a pity that I have always pinned my thoughts on him?" As the restrained person, number 5 still maintained a condescending attitude and questioned Lilith. The eyes looking down at Lilith under the black sunglasses didn't know whether it was a sneer at her Electra complex or a pity for her who lost her father early in life. "My father is a national magician that our family can be proud of. Whether he died in an accident or for some other reason, as you said, his place in my mother's and my heart has never changed. Is it something to be proud of? What I am proud of is not that my father is proficient in magic, but that as long as he is around us, he can always make my mother and I feel happy. Even my mother, who is so strict and conscientious, is always happy when she is with my father. She will show a sincere smile. My father will always care about me and protect me. I feel very happy to be her daughter. Such a man who can bring happiness to my family deserves to be given to me and my family forever. Keep it in our hearts and he will always live in our hearts. I didn't aspire to become a national magician because of my father. I embarked on this path for the boy I like. Although I later found out that he was not a magician, just an ordinary boy. But he became the person who supported my dream all the way, so I don't want to give up this dream." Finally, Lilith added, "So, I stand here and have nothing to do with my father. Do you have a boy you like? You just said you already know that the boy is not a magician. Does that mean you two have already met? It has nothing to do with you." At the critical moment, Lilith's voice didn't sound like the one who had the victory at all. "That boy is the just magician you have been talking about before, right?" Number 5 showed a gentle smile that was different from the previous mockery. "Remember, he should be a kid about the same age as you. If you put it that way, you two should be at the right age to date now, right?" Lilith noticed a certain key word in No 5's words and opened her eyes slightly. It's not a joke that arouses girls' hearts like love, but a fact that can only be known after spending childhood together. Lilith finally found evidence to prove the truth, but she just closed her eyes again. "Well, I reunited with the important male protagonist in my life. So." Lilith's voice was filled with sobs. "If Dad can still hear what I say and see how hard I work, I want to tell him that he doesn't have to worry about me anymore." She did not raise her head to look at the man who may be him, and only the broken sunglasses that fell from the sky were left in her field of vision. The dark sunglass lenses were shattered the moment they collided with the steel ground. "If I were Addison, I would probably be happy to hear these words." This was the last farewell message Number 5 left for Lilith. After receiving the signal from Lilith's PDA, the magician troops staying on the ground had arrived here fully assembled from the damaged passage gate, and also brought reinforcements from the Roxy family. "Lilith's work is completely over here." She didn't raise her head to look up at the man's face. Now that he has lost the disguise of black sunglasses, his face can be revealed in front of Lilith without any concealment, but Lilith has already got the answer she wants in her heart. "Although I don't know what you went through during the time you left, I still want to be a daughter that you are proud of, and I hope that you can continue to be a father that I am proud of." Commander Lilith, Her Royal Highness Queen Zimingila from Augustus has just released the video of the dinner party. The acting head of the family hopes that you can return home immediately. "I understand. I'll leave it to you to deal with the aftermath." The man and the girl were arrested and sent to Petak prison. The rest of the work will be arranged after coordination with the people above. Receive. Lilith turned around and left the underground space after the fierce battle without looking back. The staff in her hand turned into a starlight and returned to the diamond ring worn on the ring finger of her right hand. The unexpected reunion may be just destiny, and Lilith's path of mild doubts finally ushered in a moment of enlightenment. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 461. The aviation magic ship Yggdrasil broke out of the layers of dark clouds, and the dazzling sky spread above the head. At the moment, there is a large sea of clouds that looks like it is covered with cotton. The pale green wall is like two worlds completely separated, connecting the sky and the earth, with no end in sight. Arrive. Hitomi, who controlled Yggdrasil, calmly conveyed this exciting news to everyone in the cab, and at the same time adjusted the ship's hull to return to a horizontal position, staying in a suspended attitude at high altitude. At the same time, Aika and Ling lost their strength and sat down like deflated balloons. The large barrier Kanghui's birdcage that merged the magic power of the two girls also faded away. This is the World Tree, a magical beast beyond the 5th level. What stands in front of everyone is not a high wall, but the body of the World Tree, which is the root of the world, is too huge, and it is impossible to admire its entirety from this distance. If it wasn't hidden with that level of barrier, such a huge body would be the most conspicuous symbol anywhere in the world. I only heard about it in the Holy See before, but I didn't expect that I actually saw the legendary World Tree with my own eyes. Knowing the true identity of the behemoth in front of me, the visual and mental shock was far beyond what words could describe. But, how are we going to get in? Use the same cannon attack to make a hole in the wall. No, 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 that method will never work. Aika completely rejected Ling's casual suggestion without thinking. He didn't want to go through the same hell again just because of impulse. Ask Misty, didn't she promise to lead the way for us when we brought the two of them here? The Liuyan method is still the most satisfactory. The high pale green wall in front of me is completely perpendicular to the sea level, and there is no place to stay. After all, the World Tree is classified as a type of warcraft, and there is no way to easily enter its body. Yggdrasil remained hovering in the sky for the time being, and everyone came to Misty and Will's room again. Hearing the sound of the doorknob opening, Misty's eyes moved from the window back to the door. Reached. It was as if the previous battle that everyone worked together to fight against the Great Barrier of the World Tree had nothing to do with her. At that time, she must have been sitting by the window like this, staring at the dark clouds, lightning, and thunder outside the window. Vel hasn't woken up yet. I don't know if the transfer magic can be successful, but the chance of success should be high if the distance is so close. Before Aika and the others could express their request, Misty, who knew what they needed to do, walked down from Veer's bed and walked out of the room talking to herself between Aika and the others. You won't send us to a strange place, will you? Liuyan still asked uneasily. Veer and I are both here, going to the same place as you. Misty shouldn't put Veer, whom she values so important, in danger. Now that she said this, Liuyan could only choose to believe her words for the time being. Arriving at the central cabin of Yggdrasil, Misty stopped and then turned her head. This aviation magic ship is owned by Mechanical Alchemy, right? Can you please take care of your magic equipment and don't interfere with me? Otherwise, there may be errors in the teleportation magic, and I don't know where it will be sent. I will open up some permissions and also conduct supervision. By saying this, Hitomi must have agreed to Misty's request, right? Misty didn't say anything more, and turned back to start arranging the transfer magic that could enter the inside of the World Tree. She knelt on the floor, summoned a longbow full of mechanical texture, the magic outfit Starbow 5 Emperor's Throne 1, and then placed the longbow across her legs as if performing some kind of ritual. The magic circle expanded rapidly, covering the entire aviation magic ship. It seems that in order to enter the interior of the World Tree, in addition to special transfer magic, Magic equipment is also needed as a medium. The magic suit was born from the world tree. Perhaps the role of the medium is one of the necessary conditions to gain the approval of the world tree and enter its interior. Red magic particles floated around Misty after the magic circle was deployed. This was the characteristic of the moment when the magic circle was activated. Different from the physical sensation of ordinary transfer magic, everyone felt a slight dizziness, and the scenery in front of them shook slightly. The next moment, in the blink of an eye, the scenery outside the window changed, like a scene switch, and everyone saw a city scenery that was completely different from the sea. It was a bustling and lively city shrouded in colorful light. Among the intricate alternating streets and viaducts, long rail trains with steam emitting from the front are like giant steel dragons, moving freely among them. Flying in the cloudless blue sky is an unmanned motorboat displaying today's announcements and store advertisements. The main building complex of the city consists of high-rise buildings of different styles. In addition to humans, monsters coexisting with humans can be seen everywhere in the complex. Is this the Principality of Sentia that Misty mentioned? Regardless of Aika and Ling, even Liuyan, who once lived here, and Hitomi and Hikari, who came here, did not immediately recognize the scenery that was far different from 100 years ago. You are now directly above the residence of the Nemesis Society. Misty put away the mechanical longbow. The red magic circle had dissipated and she stood up from where she stood. If you don't want to attract other people's attention, hurry up. Let us down. Misty ignored Aika and the others, who were surprised by the scenery outside the window, turned around and walked past them back to Veer's room. From the beginning, her biggest concern was to save the dying Veer, which was also an exchange for helping everyone use transfer magic to enter the interior of the world tree. That's right. Now that we are in the sky, this aviation magic ship should be very eye-catching. Before we finish our work, let's try to reduce unnecessary trouble. The aviation magic ship Yatrashal does not need to provide a dedicated airport for landing, and directly sends everyone to the ground through the vertical lifting magic circle. The sleeping Way 11 was held in Aika's arms, while Will was held up by the magic armor chain summoned by Misty. After everyone stepped onto the solid ground, the silver-white steel whale disappeared from the sky. They landed in the ancient courtyard. Rock eyries, flowing water, flowers, green grass, gravel, and residual trees make the courtyard poetic and picturesque, making people feel like they are in a painting. Liuyan, do you know where this place is? I don't know, I have never been here. Liuyan shook his head regretfully, but this architectural style is indeed that of the former Principality of Sentia. This was the former mansion of Mephi's Sentia, the Grand Duke of Sentia. Way 11, as her magic costume, also spent a long time in this mansion. At that time, Liuyan was just a first-class ordinary citizen with no power, so naturally he had no chance to visit here. The concentration of magic particles in the air here is very high. Ling frowned slightly. It is not normal for the magic particles required by humans to maintain life to be too low or too high. Just like the human body cannot breathe pure oxygen for a long time, being exposed to an environment with high concentrations of magic particles for a long time can also cause physical discomfort. Everyone who hasn't adapted to the environment is feeling a little groggy now. Misty must have adapted to the environment by living here for a long time, or she has taken some special measures, but it seems that she is not ready to introduce it to Aika and the others. The original agreement between them was to get here safely, so Aika had no reason to ask for her after-sales service. The plants here seem to be in full bloom regardless of the season. Aika also noticed the strange scenery in the courtyard. This should be the influence from within the world tree that you said, Misty? Is it that when you said that if you destroy the world tree, everyone in Sentia Principality will be buried with you? Is this also the reason why? Destroying the world tree is nonsense. If that man were not a demon, he would never be able to make such a ridiculous request again after seeing such a scenery. Misty walked in front to lead the way for Aika and the others, Walking from the colorful courtyard into the antique corridor and passing through the paper lattice shoji doors lined up in a row. Passing Misty's room on the way, she took Will into the room and closed the paper grid door from the inside. Aika and the others were waiting for her outside the room. After a while, Vale should have been settled, and Misty walked out of the room alone. Before setting off, Misty had already performed emergency treatment for Vale on Yutra Hill using the medical kit Aika threw to her. Now Vale's vital signs are stable and he is not in a crisis situation. Misty used her eyes to tell everyone to continue following her, so Aika and the others continued to follow her, turning left and right in the huge mansion. This place is probably similar to Lan Ming's castle. Aika said with emotion, "Is this really Nemesis's stronghold? The place where the leader of Senchia Principality used to live is now being borrowed by us." Misty stopped in front of a paper grid door, which was no different from the paper grid doors they had passed before. But Aika knew what Misty meant. "Is this Lululo's room?" Misty nodded slightly in affirmation. "Lolo." Aika closed her eyes, but she couldn't feel Lolo's presence. If she was near this mansion, her presence would be felt through the magical path between the two. "There is no one here except us, and I can't feel the breath of eldest sister. She may have given up on this place." "Where's Lululo? Is she with your eldest sister?" "I don't know. I haven't paid attention to her affairs." Misty finished her words directly and blocked Aika and more questions about Lululo that she wanted to raise. "I have fulfilled my promise. Can you let me and Veer go when you come down?" It seemed that Misty had no intention of continuing to make deals with everyone, and Aika had no intention of continuing to question her. The primary purpose of everyone trying their best to come here is to wake up the sleeping Way 11, and they just hold on to a glimmer of hope that they can meet Lulu here by chance. Now she was just experiencing another disappointment, and Aika, who had endured too many blows, no longer had much sentimentality. "I said, as long as you don't hinder us, you can go wherever you want." Upon hearing this, Misty turned around and left in front of everyone without even saying thank you or saying goodbye. I don't know what her plans are next, but she can't go anywhere with the unconscious Veer dragging her with her. "Aika, this is their territory. If she is given freedom, there may be some problems, right? Misty doesn't seem to be interested in us. She is lucky not to bother us. If the man next to her is awake, she might be able to ask something from him, but I definitely don't have to think about it now. That's right, that man is still half dead now, and she can't just leave that man alone." While Ling and Liuyan questioned each other, Aika walked into the room where Lulu once lived, holding Way 11 in her arms. Behind the paper grid doors pushed open from the left and right, there is a simply furnished pavilion. The semicircular lattice window is like an inverted bowl, occupying almost 1/3 of the entire wall in front of you. There was a small vase placed in the corner of the window sill, filled with out-of-season flowers that I had just seen in the courtyard. There was only a lighted incense burner on the low desk in front of the lattice window, which was the source of the pleasant aroma in the room. A curved screen is used to divide another small space on the left side of the slightly empty room. Everything in the room was just right, but nothing felt like it belonged to Lulu. There is no object dyed with her color here, and no object dyed with her color appears here, as if she has never existed here, as if she is so lost. Lolo. Aika's only hope at this moment is that Misty did not deceive him. This elegant pavilion did become Lulu's shelter for a time. Even though I didn't see Lulu in person, I found her footprints. As long as we keep following her footsteps, there will always be a moment when we catch up with her. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 462. This mansion is indeed as Misty said, there is no trace of anyone else staying here except them. Everyone first became familiar with the environment of this mansion. Most of them were empty rooms that had not been used. There was one room that was hidden in the shadows and seemed to be locked from the inside. Because I didn't care about anything in particular, I didn't force the door to break in. There was always light leaking out of Misty's room through the closed door. She was probably still looking after the unconscious Veer tirelessly, and no one bothered her when they passed by her room door. Because this is the territory of the Nemesis Society after all, there may be unknown risks in various places that are not paid attention to. Everyone decided to sleep in the same room tonight and take Way 11 to the inside of the World Tree tomorrow to find a place that could help her wake up. The place where we will temporarily live together tonight is the room where Ludo once lived. There are extra unused beddings in the cupboard of the room, and the area is also very spacious. Ika asked Way 11 to sleep on the bed behind the curved screen. Plus Ika, the other three people spread the bedding side by side on the soft overlay of the room. There was no feeling of crowding at all. Hitomi should go back there at night. Rest in the world on the other side. Want to sleep together? When Ling made such a suggestion, Liuyan clearly showed a vigilant attitude. She exuded a stinging aura and stared closely at the only boy among the three. Ika didn't have any special thoughts when she heard Ling suggest that everyone should sleep together to prevent accidents. It wasn't until Liuyan showed his vigilant attitude that he was shocked to realize that he had already adapted to the luxury of being in the same room with the opposite sex without even realizing it. I'll sleep in the corner over there. You two girls can sleep together. Ika gestured to the corner of the room with her finger. That distance should be considered a safe distance. What are you talking about? This is the territory of the Nemesis Association. If there is an emergency, we can't react at all from such a distance, right? We are all in the same room, so there is no concept of being far away from each other. Miss Ling, didn't you say before that those two people can't do anything now? Why are you using the Nemesis Society's territory as an excuse now? This is a fact, not an excuse. There are excess magic particles inside the World Tree. I can stay in this world forever. Hitomi calmly inserted herself into the midst of the two girls who were talking in confusion. She probably didn't realize that her joining would make their dispute more serious. Hitomi, you must have been prepared to stay here forever. Yes. It seems that Hitomi's attitude has long been firm, and Ika, as the master, has no choice but to accept her willfulness. So there are 4 people sleeping in this room tonight. However, the room is spacious enough to accommodate 1 more person. Have you excluded me? As expected, Guang, who had not appeared since arriving inside the World Tree, appeared next to Ling. It is a rare opportunity to get closer to you, demon. We also need to be honest with humans to deepen our understanding. Only in this way can we make the contract between us closer, right? Why do you keep looking at Ika and saying these things? Shouldn't your master be me? The appearance of light caused Hitomi to narrow her eyes slightly, showing a vigilant look. She moved her steps and stood in front of Ika as if she wanted to protect her master. The room is cramped and the hospitality is poor. Please come back. How could I mind that kind of thing? Hitomi's requirements are really too strict. Before Hitomi could even summon the red paper umbrella as a weapon, Hikaru quickly shortened the distance between them with an unpredictable smile, put her hand under Hitomi's arm, and lifted her away from Ika. On the side, and then came to Ika's side. Before Ika could react and was about to do something, she pressed her face towards him and hugged Ika's arm. Ika's arm sank deeply into the softness under the pure white clothes. Light. A scent like sake drifted from her body, making people unconsciously intoxicated. Because I want to get closer to Hitomi, obviously we are both magic costumes born from the World Tree, so we should be as close as sisters. But Hitomi always looks unhappy when she sees me, and she can't be nice. Isn't it strange to get along? Even then, your behavior now is too strange, isn't it? Is it weird? Since Hitomi didn't give me a chance to get close, I can only start with the master she cares about most. This is a helpless move. After Hikaru refuted Ling's accusation as if it was natural, She glanced meaningfully at Hitomi, who was being held away from Aika by her. After Ming Guang hugged Aika's arm, she didn't take any further action, but the glance she looked at Hitomi seemed to have a faint feeling of boasting of victory. You have entered a safe distance. As the owner of the magical equipment, it is necessary to eliminate the approaching threat. Hitomi, you need to be more confident in yourself. You can't always think that your master will be taken away if I do this. The two girls who were sisters in love looked at each other. Hitomi's cold expression seemed to twitch slightly, Hikari still did not flinch, and the atmosphere between them suddenly became dangerous. Then everyone watched as Hitomi silently set up the folded red paper umbrella. Wait a minute, Hitomi, if you have something to say, please tell me. Aika quickly broke free from Hikari's arms, and with one lunge, she reached out and suppressed Hitomi's weapon. Everyone knew that the seemingly ordinary red paper umbrella had the power of mechanical alchemy, and Hitomi looked really angry when he took out the weapon without saying a word. Aika, who only guessed Hitomi's feelings based on her subtle expressions, only this time firmly believed that her judgment was absolutely accurate. She must suppress Hitomi's anger immediately to prevent this historic mansion from being destroyed by endless gunfire. Once upon a time, Guang, who was freed by Aika, just said it's such a pity. She probably did that just to tease Hitomi, who rejected her thousands of miles away. Let me tell you, are you usually in this state? Liuyan looked at the little fight between Aika and the others dumbfounded. Except for the time they spent together in the mansion in the east district of the imperial capital, Liuyan and the few people who lived together in the administrator's cabin had never spent time together. If you think about it carefully, Liuyan actually doesn't know what Aika and the others are like on a daily basis. She had felt curious many times before, but when she asked Wei 11 was only vague and knew that their daily life should be full of happiness. Maybe I have no chance of such a stable daily life. For Liuyan, who only valued Wei 11 and the Holy See, it was incredible that he was still in the mood to have a little fight like this at this moment. I never wanted to live every day as if I were trying to stop a war. Aika complained while pushing Hitomi's shoulders further away from the light. Judging from the current situation, it would be a miracle if the two of them could sleep together peacefully tonight. Liuyan tried hard to understand all the emotions contained in Aika's words. She felt a little relieved when she thought that Wei 11, who was not around, had been relaxing and playing like them on weekdays. Just this once, it doesn't matter if we spend the night together occasionally. There are so many people here. The problem now is that there are too many people. Aika couldn't help but complain to Liuyan. After decorating the room, I can relax a little and enjoy some rest tonight. Everyone had fully relaxed in the mansion's open-air hot spring and put on the pajamas they had brought beforehand. What weird clothes. Although both Hitomi and Hikaru can use their own magic power to generate the clothes they need to wear in this world, since they want to fully experience life in this world, Aika still suggests that they put on close-fitting Japanese pajamas themselves. Hitomi's fluffy pink twin tails were untied while taking a shower, and were draped over her shoulders with wet moisture. Guang's posture after putting on Japanese-style pajamas was still much the same as when she was wearing a hakama skirt, except that she had her beautiful long black hair tied on top of her head, revealing her white neck, which was as gentle and elegant as a hibiscus. I really like this kind of clothing. It doesn't feel like a constraint. Guang lowered his head and looked around at the fresh outfits, then spun around in a circle. It was Aika and Ling who started to tidy up the bedding for everyone. They were like the owner and proprietress of a hotel, taking care of the guests who came from afar. The actual situation is that Hitomi and Hikari, who are new here, have no idea how to spread the futon on the soft layered mattress. This kind of work that requires hands-on experience can only be done by their two masters. 5 comfortable quilts have been laid out in the center of the room. Judging from the current situation, this number of people is just right. It doesn't feel crowded or spacious. The incense on the desk was still burning quietly, and the fragrant fragrance spreading in the room catalyzed the long-term accumulation of fatigue to slowly dissolve, bringing a drowsy and lazy feeling. Liuyan, do you need help from Way 11? Thank you, I'm done. Liuyan came out from behind the curved screen holding a basin filled with water. She had just finished wiping the sleeping Way 11's body and put on the same pajamas as everyone else's. Xiao 11 will wake up tomorrow, and there will be no need to do this kind of thing anymore. Isn't this something we should be happy about? Ahaha, I probably know that Xiao 11 is just sleeping, so I don't feel too nervous. This feeling is really contradictory. Liuyan smiled with a complicated expression and walked out of the room carrying the basin. Although I don't know if there is any difference between the flow of time inside the world tree and the outside world, the sky inside the world tree has completely darkened now, and everyone naturally feels like turning off the lights and going to sleep. You shouldn't have to worry too much about Misty and Wool. The contract between the two of them and the magic equipment has not been severed, and the environment inside the world tree has strengthened this connection. Now even if their magic equipment is not activated, we can still feel their location. As long as they are close, it will cause we pay attention. Just from this explanation, it seems that magic equipment does possess certain things that human senses cannot detect. We actually hope you can have a good rest. We have gone through so many fierce battles and have worked hard for you for so long. But in this situation, only you can monitor the two of them. I'm really sorry. It was rare for Ling to let go and sincerely ask her and Ika's two partners for something that only they could do. After all, we are living under the same roof with the enemy. It is incredible that this is the case now. I won't let them cause trouble. It seems that Guang and Hitomi frankly accepted Ling's sincere request. It's rare for everyone to spend the night together in the same room like this, and they must not want to be disturbed by other people. Of course, the final result of the assignment was that Ika could not sleep in the middle position, hugged on the left and right, but was assigned to the edge position closest to the door. The girls sleeping next to him are Hitomi, Ling, Guang, and Liuyan in order. Naturally, it is impossible for Hitomi and Hikaru to sleep together peacefully, and Hitomi is obviously unwilling to leave Ika's side, so the position that originally belonged to Ling was inexplicably taken away by Hitomi. It was rare to have such a leisurely moment, so everyone made a little fuss before falling asleep. As a result, they became even more sleepy after turning off the lights and lying down. Although she was close to the edge of the room, Ika still couldn't say that she could sleep peacefully without being hugged by her side. Hitomi was sleeping sideways next to Ika, and he could feel that Hitomi was not asleep yet. I have heard before that as long as she does not consume too much magic power, Hitomi does not need to sleep at night like humans in this world. Now this behavior for her is just to enjoy daily life like everyone else. Ika closed her eyes and didn't fall asleep for a long time, so she opened her eyes again and looked at the ceiling. The room was quiet except for the subtle breathing of the girls, one after another. They did not have as much difficulty falling asleep as Ika, which also proved that they had accumulated more fatigue than Ika, both physically and mentally. The mental fatigue is not due to the constant events, but more due to Ika's previous actions. Ika, who couldn't sleep, glanced tentatively beside her. Hitomi was looking at Ika's side face with her eyes slightly opened under the silvery moonlight shining in from the raised lattice window. It's incredible. Is it a coincidence that the two of them opened their eyes and looked at each other at the same time? Ika had never felt that Hitomi was watching her until just now. Even after meeting Ika's eyes, Hitomi didn't seem to have any intention of hiding, and still looked at each other quietly with Ika. Go to sleep. Unable to bear to break the silent air in the room, Ika whispered to her at a volume that only Hitomi sleeping next to her could hear. I don't know if Hitomi didn't fall asleep because she was worried. She just closed her eyes obediently. Even though she did this, Ika didn't know if she was really ready to sleep. From such a close distance, it was impossible not to smell Hitomi's peaceful aura. Although there is no trace like a watermark on a white paper, it still covers the existence of the incense, occupying my heart, and diluting the worries that I can't let go in the beautiful and light fragrance. After a while, Ika, who had not been able to sleep for a long time, also fell into a deep sleep,